Only today, Kohane Shama Hallelujah, 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 Kol Haneshama Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Holy Brother Network. This is Daniel Levy, the Good Mood Coach, coming at you live from Scottsdale, Arizona. Today, we will be talking about only today from the Holy Mohorosh, Aliyah Neshamas for Avram Shmuel ben Natan V'Kela, from his book, and for Akiva ben Avraham, and for all holy brothers who are, it should be a schus for all the holy brothers who struggle with emotional difficulties all around this country and the world, who want to come close to Hashem and struggle too. It should be strengthening for all of us. I am in that category too. Thank you very much. Every soul, every soul bless Hashem. My dear fellow Jew, you must know that if you wish to succeed in life and lead an enjoyable, sweet existence, you must segregate this day from both tomorrow and yesterday. You must fill your mind with the thought that you have only today, and that your entire life consists only of this day, and that all your hope relies upon this day. If you will think in this manner, then you will be very successful. The word segregate. It's like really we need to block off yesterday and tomorrow. Just to have that we only have today, that all our hope relies on today. And that the only good we can gain and the only way to get through all this is only today. There's a mantra in the 12-step world, right? Day by day. DBD. I also have a DBD recently, difficult by design. So when you have a difficulty by design, DBD, you need a DBD, which is a day by day. And they're so good, and we can learn from them. The clients I've had from 12-step, you hear people, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm taking it day by day. That somehow they're learning through their hard work, through their struggle, that they can't make it if they're going to think about how they're going to get through tomorrow and think about the wreckage of the past, as my friend David says. He's contemplating the wreckage of my future or something. I got to get the exact phrase. So we just can't make it that way. You won't be able to make it. The burden is just, it's too much. And so we learn that the only way to make it through is just to cut off myself from my perceptions of yesterday and my perceptions of tomorrow, and realize that my only hope is today. Nothing else besides today. The question is, how do we do that? How do we do that? Because so much of the time, yesterday bleeds and swims right into today like a rushing river of destruction. And tomorrow we're petrified of, or we're overwhelmed by, because we perceive, oh my gosh, it's going to be horrible. Or I can't take this. Or how am I going to get through this? And that's real. That's not a joke. I'm not trying to minimize any of it. So what are we going to do? Let's take this question seriously. How am I literally going to get this D by D, this day by day? How am I going to do that? It's some type of give. There's a couple ways. I could work hard to put up walls, or I could surrender. I could let go. The side of hold, of like giving in, or the side of fighting, strength. And sometimes maybe we need both. For example, if I'm having an A or B day with the ABC system, then maybe I can fight it like this. Is it useful to think about tomorrow? Do I know anything about what's going to be tomorrow? If I have a strong thought, like, whoa, if this continues on, I don't know what I'm going to do. If this continues on, I don't know what I'm going to do actually means I don't know what I'm going to do, and I won't be able to handle it. It's like a little parentheses. So I can go after it with a hammer. I call it a hammer technique, where you say, do I know what will be tomorrow? No. Do I know what will be tomorrow? No. Do I know what will be tomorrow? No, I don't, because we don't know anything about the future. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing at all. Nothing, zero, nothing, zero. How many times have I thought I knew what would be in the future, turned out to be not that way? Maybe worse, maybe better, maybe both. But either way, whatever I think about the future is suspect. So maybe I can segregate the future that way. Now, what about the past? I'm fighting against the past. Is any story that I actually think about what happened in the past accurate? Completely accurate? No. So why do I want to think about it right now? I don't want to think about it right now. But it wants to think about me. It wants me to think about it. Why? It's a trap. These are traps. We're talking about how to get out of the traps, how to segregate. We're trying to apply the advice. Segregate tomorrow, segregate yesterday. And that's the side of fighting. I think one question, just hands down, is it useful? Is it useful? Is it useful to think about this right now? I've been using that in the last couple of days, trying to ask myself when it comes time for prayer, is it useful to think about this right now? No. No. Hammer. Is it useful right now? No. Is it useful right now? No. In this technique, you just hit it over, answer it. Hit it over, answer it. Hit it over, answer it. This is the side of koach, netzach. Now let's talk about the side of surrender. Day by day. You know what? It's like this. Sometimes we get so overwhelmed, we just give up. You know, like, I can't do this. I give up. But in doing that, it's actually can be wonderful. Like, okay, I give up. I can't do this. You know what? Whatever will be, will be. And that's amazing too. Stop thinking that I have the power to push this out. And this is really important on a C day, on a can't day, to give up. I personally, whenever I have a C day, wish that I'll remember, and I want to remember, and I'll need to make a new mental note to give up as soon as possible. Since C stands for can't, then I can't. And if I can't, I can't. Like, I have a client in Chicago, and they're really going through a lot of C and D days, can't and desperate, D, desperate, and they're working in Jewel, and their partner's working 2 jobs, and they just got married like a couple months ago, and they've had to take off work a bunch of times in the past, and I in general think that working on a C day is not even reasonable. Actually, it's doable, barely, right? So it's amazing that she was able to work for the last few weeks, and I said to her, I was like, "That's amazing. It's amazing that you can work. Like, how are you doing that?" And somehow she's just getting through it. And I think it's because she's segregating tomorrow. She's just giving it up and saying, "Okay, I'm just going to try to get through the day, and I'm just going to try, and whatever it is what it'll be. I'm just going to try to get through the day. I'm just going to try to get in the day 1 foot in front of the other, one minute at a time, 1 hour at a time." And that's what this whole addiction process that they're teaching us is like, one test at a time. Don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about it. Who knows what will be between now and then anyways. You must fill your mind with the thought, says the Maharaj, that you have only today, and that your entire life consists of only this day. Only this day. All your hope relies on only this day. There's no hope anywhere else. If you think in this manner, you'll be very successful. Most people become brokenhearted and collapse into deep despondency and nervousness, being tortured by their consciousness. Do so because they think and worry what happened yesterday, the day before that, and so on. Furthermore, they worry about what will be tomorrow, the day after that. And so we're really exploring the question of when you're on a C day and your thoughts are thinking you instead of you thinking your thoughts. Your thoughts are thinking you. Your thoughts are thinking through you instead of you are thinking through your thoughts. is how do you get away from that? You get away from that, we're saying, by saying I can't and I give up. And I was trying to get to the point, which is, and I realize I'm being long-winded. I hope that if you're still listening, that's because it's useful to you. Is that if I can't, it's better just to give up. Give up as soon as possible. And get better at knowing this is the time to give up. This is the time to not bother, not even try. I'm trying to fight my way out of it with the strength I don't really have. On an A day, when I'm able to use strategic warfare, strategic ways of getting out, might be good. And on B day, healthy decisions. So if it's healthy to challenge my negative thoughts, awesome. But on a C day, generally my mind is useless and my thoughts are thinking me instead of I'm thinking my thoughts, and therefore I'm inside the bubble of my thoughts. Forget it. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. And so this girl has given up, and she's taking a leave from work, and I'm proud of her that she's even willing to do that. And she's even considering going to a residential treatment program. But that's a really strong decision, actually, in her situation. And in many, many years, she hasn't gotten the treatment she needs for PTSD. And, she really needs the time to recover. And so giving up and just giving into the day, giving into the flow, and say, today is my only hope. I have to take it day by day, DBD, if I want to overcome the DBD. If I want to break through and not break down from the DBT that I find around this town, I got to use the day by day and use it every way, in a clever way. Yay. All right. So Rosh Hashanah is coming. A year is composed of 365 days and a quarter. We don't know how many days we have. We don't know how many days we have. Yom means day, and Yam means sea. And a vav that we put in the middle of it's like a connector. Rabbi Tat says a connector to above, we could say. So Yom, a day, is like swimming in the big empty sea, the big empty void of reality, and trying to find some way to connect to the one above. And the only way to connect to the one above is through inner connection and love. We have to pierce the veil of the darkness. How do we do that when the darkness is so thick and the veils are so strong? I think it determines proactive surrender. How do you surrender on purpose? How do you let go intentionally? How do we do that? Well, firstly, we need to pray for it. We need to pray for it. God, please help me to let go. Please help me to find ways to direct myself and process myself in healthy ways to good authors, good speakers, that my health will get stronger and stronger. Now pray for others. Ask God for help. God for help to pierce the darkness. And that we'll find the true spiritual health, spiritual nutrition. We need our fire lit by other people. Without the holy rabbis and teachers that I get to see every day or two, I would be like, forget it. Between that and prayer, forget it. I have nothing, zero, nothing. And I keep learning that lesson. So hearing things from others, praying for the darkness to be pierced, listening to other people, till it bores a hole right through it. Kohanishama tehale. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kohanishama tehale. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kohanishama tehale. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Call every soul, praise God, and realize He's what we need. We talked the other night about sometimes when you see that you're being buried alive, you're actually being planted. And we talked before that about sometimes the exit from hell is at the bottom. And in being a C day and a D day, it's just disastrously difficult. It's DBD beyond. It's MBDB, massively difficult, beyond difficult. BD by design. DVD is coming after me on DVD. There's a famous story by Rebbe Nachman called The Lost Princess. It's an amazing story. I'm going to read part of it and we talk about it. Is it really about dealing with the darkness? The Rebbe spoke up and said, well, on my journey, I told a story. Whoever heard of it had a thought of repentance. And this is the story. Repentance, teshuvah, of return. There was once a king who had 6 sons and 1 daughter. This daughter was very precious and he loved her very much. He spent much time with her. One time he was alone with her on a certain day and he became angry with her. He inadvertently said, "May the evil one take you away." Now what? At night she went to her room. In the morning no one knew where she was. Her father was very upset. And he went here and there looking for her. And he couldn't find her. The viceroy realized that the king was very upset. He stood up and asked the king give him a servant, a horse, and some money for expenses, and he went to search for her. He searched for her very, very long time until he found her. Now he tells how he searched for her until he found her. The viceroy traveled back and forth for a long time through deserts, fields, and forests. He searched for the princess for a long time. Finally, he traveled through the desert. He saw a path to the side. He thought it over. Since I have traveled for so long in the desert and cannot find her, let me follow this path. Perhaps it will bring me to an inhabited area. He continued traveling for a long time until he finally saw a castle. Many soldiers stood around it. The castle was beautiful, and the troops around it were standing in a fine order. The viceroy was afraid that the soldiers would not let him enter. But he thought it over, and he just said to himself, I will go ahead and see what happens. He left behind his horse, and he went up to the castle. The soldiers let him come in, doing nothing to him at all. He went, in the children's book version of this, which I should show you, it's the best. It's like one of those situations where you could just like walk in and they don't notice you. He's like invisible somehow. Finally went to the main hall. I saw the king sitting there with a crown on his head. There were also many soldiers as well as musicians with their instruments in front of them. It was all very pleasant and beautiful. Neither the king nor anyone else asked him any questions. He saw delicacies and fine foods there, and he ate. Then he went to lie down in a corner to see what would happen. He saw the king issue. There you go. He saw the king issue a command to bring the queen. People went to fetch her. There was a great uproar, ha, as they brought forth the queen, and the orchestra played and the choir sang. People sat a throne for the queen and sat her next to the king. She was the lost princess. As soon as the viceroy saw her, he recognized her. The queen looked around and seeing someone lie in the corner, recognized him. She stood up from her throne and went over and touched him. Do you know me? She asked. Yes, I know you. You are the king's daughter who was lost. He then asked her, how did you get here? She replied, it happened when my father said the evil one should take me. This is the place of evil. Welcome to our world, right? So here we see already, I don't really understand these stories, but they're fun and interesting. And we could try to, I guess milk or juice out of it what hopefully with God's help we'll be able to take good things. That the princess is like our souls, like the light, the hidden light. The hidden essence of who a person is, hidden deep in the darkness, in the place of evil. Evil. What's evil, anyways? Evil is when we don't have spiritual awareness of the divine, of purpose, of faith, of trust, of truth. When that's concealed from us, that darkness, that's evil. Evil is like the absence of good. And it's in that very darkness where we feel so scared. And what's crazy is that C days and all the more so D days are really characterized by hanging out in an empty big ocean, in an empty big place where it's like, I'm around a lot of people, but there's nobody around. I'm in this place of fake people and fake things, and I'm dissociated and disconnected. I don't even know I'm in a world between worlds. Where am I? Where am I? Ayeka. Ayeka. Where are you hiding? Holy Breslovers or Rebbe Nachman students, they teach us that sometimes we have to call out into the great abyss. God, please help the holy brothers and sisters. Woo! Now, he said, how can I get you out of here? He wants to know, how can he get this beautiful princess, this perfect, beautiful essence out? She said, it's impossible to get me out unless you choose for yourself a place and remain there for an entire year. All that year you must long to get me out. Whenever you are unoccupied, you must yearn, seek, and look forward to freeing me. You must also fast. Then, on the last day of the year, You must fast and go to sleep for the entire you must fast and go without sleep for the entire 24-hour period. The viceroy went and did exactly what she told him. On the last day at the end of the year, he fasted and he did not sleep. Then he stood up and was headed towards the castle when he saw a tree with very, very beautiful apples. It was desirable to the eyes, and he ate an apple. As soon as he ate the apple, he immediately fell asleep, and he slept for a very long time. So first of all, what is this? In order to get this princess back to the king, back to its proper place, elevated, getting ourselves out of here, it says we have to be there for one place on purpose the entire year. Yearn, seek, and look forward to freeing me. Yearn, seek, and look forward. We have to seek God and yearn for him and seek him. Deep inside, deep in the darkness, find and look forward to freeing me. And look forward to freeing me. That's a belief that I can free him. I don't look forward to something that's not going to happen, which means that she's saying in order to free the princess, we have to believe that we can free the princess. I mean, we look forward to it and fast. What does that mean, fast? It means don't consume too much. We have to put aside some of our indulgences and our addictions, I guess. Listen, I'm thinking out loud with you. Don't think I got any but I'm not even reading at the bottom here. There's like 500 words of commentary. I'm just hoping that the basics are always good enough for me. I can barely get through the basics. Then, on the last day of the year, you must fast and go without sleep for a 24-hour period. I don't know what they mean. The last day of the year is really like Yom Kippur. We're coming up to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Why is it the last day of the year? You say it's 10 days into the new year. Well, that's what's interesting about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur coming up. That Rosh Hashanah is both the first day of the year, but actually the 10 days of return, of repentance, of Teshuvah. Also, Yom Kippur is when the gates closed for last year. And we don't eat for a whole 25-hour period, and then not sleep. I think that means remain awake. Remain spiritually aware. Anyways, there was a temptation, an apple, aka forbidden fruit. It was desirable to the eyes. He ate an apple. As soon as he ate the apple, he fell asleep, and he slept a long time. How long? Says the commentary, this denotes the loss of the higher state of consciousness. As such, it's like a spiritual death, 1/60th death. This is reflected in the Torah, where during the 10 generations from Adam to Noah, nothing of significance happens, as if the human race were in a state of sleep. At this time, humanity was still one, and it could have been easily rectified. Sleep is like exile itself. Man, I'm sleeping through my life. I'm sleepwalking through my life. That somehow we have to, we've been talking about, this is perfect, that how do we wake up our consciousness? Because the thing is, what's so wonderful, I'm so grateful to God about, and want to be sharing this with you, is that a mode is different than a mood. And a mode, we can still find God. We can still find our souls. We can still be ourselves, even if a person's in a C day. I've seen it 100 times more. Not just in my clients, in my life. A person can still find something of true value in the dark hills, in the what do we call it? The darklands of depression and the Alps of anxiety. Still in the C day, a person can find something. It's still there too. There's something to find, and it's so important to know, because it feels like there's nothing. It feels like there's nothing. We feel like there's nothing, but it's not true. There's no thing, but there's still something. And it's available because it comes from a deeper level. And sleep is just giving in. So So we need to wake ourselves up, pop that higher consciousness back in somehow, wake up our connection to our soul. We also need to let go, we surrender, we let go of our attachment to what's happening and say, okay, so it's happening. What am I going to do? And to believe that we can indeed find something will help a lot. Will help a lot. Yeah. Holy brothers, if you are listening still, so we're going on 30 minutes. I was just going to make a 7-minute one, but holy brother. His servant tried to wake him up, but he could not. When he finally woke him up, he said, "Where in the world am I?" Twice in the last 24 hours, clients said to me the same thing, which is, Daniel, it's so weird. When I'm in that dark place, in the darklands of depression, I'm in the sea world, it feels like I'm never going to get out of here. And then when I'm out of here, I feel like I was never there. It's like, what was I thinking? That's crazy. And it's crazy. It's really crazy when you think about it. That higher levels of consciousness really feel like different worlds, like different states of being where when you're in the higher one, it's like the lower one never existed. And when you're in the lower one, it's like the higher one's never coming back and there's no way out of this little prison. And that's disturbing. It's really amazing. It's really amazing how disconnected they are from each other. Where in the world am I? So when I'm down here, I think a very important thing is just to surely remember, like he said here, when you're unoccupied, whenever you're unoccupied, which if you're in a true sea days, you're not doing too much, you must only yearn, seek, and look forward to freeing me and fast. So yearn and fast. Okay. He woke up. The servant told him exactly what had happened. You slept for a very long time, for many years, and I survived by eating this fruit. Which is interesting. Okay, so the viceroy ate the fruit on the night he was supposed to stay awake and went to sleep. But the servant of the viceroy ate the fruit the whole time for 70 years. He didn't fall asleep, obviously. Anyhow, it's interesting. How is it that a viceroy eats a fruit and goes to sleep, but the servant eats the fruit and doesn't go to sleep? The viceroy was very upset. He went to the castle. Servant told him, you slept for a very long time, many years. The viceroy was very upset. He went to the castle and found the princess. She lamented to him, if you had come directly on that day, you would have freed me from here. But because of one day, you lost everything. But it is very difficult not to eat, especially on the last day, when the evil urge is very strong. What's the fix here? You see, I think I never thought of this before, but I think like the servant, maybe the servant, I should have asked the servant for help. I notice when people want to change at work that when they're willing to say something like, Daniel, I don't want to call him anymore. I have to not call him. This is horrible for me. Like whoever, a man, a woman, there's both directions that they have a toxic relationship. And if they call the person, they're going to be bad, cycling again, right? So when they're willing to commit and it's real to them when they say, and I say, hey, listen, let's make a deal. Do you agree that you will call me before you call them? And I'm not saying you're not going to call them. You can't. I'm not asking for that promise, but I'm asking you to promise to agree that you will call me before you call them. And when they, with all sincerity and earnestness, say, yes, I will, I feel like, okay, I know they're not going to eat, so to speak. Like, I know they're not going to do that unless some big way God trips them or like a crazy situation. But someone says, I'll try. And I don't hear from them. And then they show up in 4 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever. It's like, oh, I did it again, Daniel. Okay, right. But because there was like a move they could have made that they didn't. And we can make that move. And I don't know if it means this in the story or not. I really had no idea what these stories really mean. But they encourage us, these holy teachers, to interpret and to draw out meaning. And that means the absolute meaning, which is what we're learning from it. That the servant was there the whole time. I mean, what was the servant watching him while he's sitting there and like meditating and fasting, and then all of a sudden he's eating the fruit? What's with the servant? The servant's probably like, oh no, boss, don't eat. Like, did he say anything? What was the servant doing? Was the servant off like, going to the bathroom and then the guy ate and came back? I don't know. But we do see if the servant could eat the fruit for 70 years, the servant certainly could handle the fruit test. Otherwise, he's not affected by it. It's obviously not a problem for him. So I think maybe the viceroy should have asked the servant to intercede. I'm trying to think, what's the fix what can we learn from this? So we're having a problem. We need something bigger than your problem. If your problem's bigger than you need something bigger than your problem. And usually we think of that as God. Like, if your problem's bigger than you, then you need something bigger than your problem. But I want to offer this idea today that I'm thinking that maybe that's just having someone else on your team. Because together everyone accomplishes more. Team is strong. If 2 people can lift 300 pounds and one person, each of those people individually can only lift 100 pounds. But for some reason, when we get together and lift, we could lift a 300-pound object. And so too, maybe if the viceroy had involved the servant more. That I have no idea. I'm not trying to criticize the servant. Let's go. You can get the point. Now you find yourself in a place again. Now find yourself a place again. Remain there for another year. This time you're permitted to eat on the last day, but you may not sleep. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm remembering ways I failed these tests where it's like, you see, you're going through another revolution. Oh, our holy teacher, Rabbi Balafia, said about Rosh Hashanah, about teshuvah, about return, the concept of return, of returning, that returning can mean returning to the same place you were again. The shape of the shofar is like a helix. Yeah. In fact, I should add a shofar in case you don't know what a shofar is here. It's no problem. Shofar is this. This is, I think, a pretty good shofar shape. Yep. Yeah, so we go like this, and our consciousness grows, starts small and gets bigger, and hopefully we return to the same place, meaning we're back in the same place again. Back in the high life again. God is testing us to see what we will do in the end. We're back in the same situation again. God put us there to see what we would do in the end. So returning to Teshuvah means returning to the same spot. And seeing, do we choose to do the right thing? Do we choose to do the healthy thing? Do we choose to pass the test? Do we choose to fight against and lose, but still at least fight? Do we ask for help from others? Do we ask for help from God? Are we a big enough man, a big enough person to humble ourselves and do whatever we need to do to protect ourselves from ourselves or others? And I'm thinking so many times I didn't, but I'm glad we're reading this together. Yeah. Now, find yourself a place again, remain there for another year. This time you are permitted on the last day, but you may not sleep. Do not drink any wine on that day, so you will not fall asleep. The main thing is to avoid sleeping. The viceroy went and did as she instructed. On the last day, as he was heading towards the castle, avoiding sleep. The main thing is avoiding sleep. You got to stay awake. On the last day, as he was heading towards the castle, he saw a flowing spring. And I really didn't explain it right from before, but Rabbi Balafia said that the word teshuvah, which means returning to the same spot you were before. Returning, and also could mean returning to the root. It can also mean returning to God, returning to yourself. So, great word, teshuvah, shuva, shuvubanim. He saw a flowing spring. Now, the viceroy went and did as she instructed. On the last day, he was heading towards the castle. He saw a flowing spring. It was red in color and smelled like wine. Uh-oh. Do. He asked his servant, "Do you see this? It's a spring and should contain water, but has red color and smells like wine." The viceroy went and took a taste from the spring, and he immediately fell asleep. The servants is going on here, man. Interesting. It's a red color and smells like wine. The viceroy went and took a taste from the spring, and he immediately fell asleep for many years. This time he remained asleep for 70 years. Oh, boy. Right. Meanwhile, many soldiers passed by, along with their baggage trains and their equipment. The servant hid himself because of the soldiers. Then a chariot and carriages passed by, carrying the princesses. Now, princess. She stopped there next to the viceroy and descended, sitting next to him. She recognized him and tried very hard to wake him, but he could not be awakened. Then she began to complain to him. He had spent so much effort and great toil for many years to free her. But then, what do you mean complain to him? She then began to complain to him. It seems weird. These are commentary. Complain. The divine presence complains that we do not free her. Oh, she's upset with him because she wants to be freed. She's like, "What's up? It's a very great pity both upon him and upon me. I've been here such a very long time and I cannot leave." So she's not happy in this lost exile. My holy brother, one of them that I study with, we call it Soul Talk. We talk about being disconnected and being lost and not being able to connect to your true self. She then took the kerchief from her head and wrote on it with her tears, leaving it next to him. She then got up and sat in her chariot and left. She took her kerchief from her head and wrote on it with her tears, leaving it next to him. She got up in her chariot and left. Wow. Tear writing. Ooh, my goodness. When the viceroy woke up, he asked his servant, "Where in the world am I?" The servant told him everything that had happened. He told him that many troops had passed by and a chariot had come. A woman had wept over him and lamented that it's a great pity both on him and on her. The viceroy then noticed the kerchief lying next to him. "Where did this come from?" he asked. The servant replied that the woman had written on it with tears. The viceroy took it and held it up to the sun. He began to see the letters and could read what was written on it. It contained all her lamentations and grief. He also read that she was no longer in a castle, but he must now search for a golden mountain. A golden mountain and a pearl castle. A golden mountain and a pearl castle, and there you will find me. The viceroy left his servant behind. Why would you want to leave a servant behind? I guess because he wasn't doing you much good. Goodbye, servant. Goodbye. Goodbye, servant. Goodbye. Goodbye, servant. Goodbye. 'Cause with you all I did was cry. Now, the viceroy left his servant behind and went alone to find her. He traveled for many years. He concluded he certainly would not find a golden mountain or pearl castle in any civilized area, since he was an expert in geography. Therefore, he said, "I will go into the deserts." He searched for her for many years in the deserts. Finally, he met a huge man. He was such a huge giant that he could not be considered a human, and he was carrying an immense tree. In civilized areas, such a large tree would never be found. "Who are you?" asked the stranger. "I'm a human being," he replied. "I've been in the desert for many years now," said the giant in amazement. I never saw a human being here before. The Viceroy told him the entire story and said he was looking for a golden mountain or pearl castle. The giant said he was certain that no such thing existed. He discouraged the Viceroy and told him the place had been convinced by foolish tales certainly no place existed. So we see when a person has faith, then sometimes we believe in ourselves. All of a sudden people come along and tell you can't do it. I had a session a week ago. Yes, it was on Friday. And this woman, Asian in Colorado, she recently broke up with her boyfriend and living on her own and getting involved in marketing and networking, and has a sister who's toxic for her and a friend that's toxic for her, and both of them always essentially tell her she's doing the wrong thing. And she's learning to listen to herself and put up boundaries and not listen to these things. And of course, right after we talked about this, a few days later, she started getting these messages and conversations. But here, those are like the giants. They're the things that lord over us, that are giant, I think, maybe. And they make us feel that what we believe in ourselves and the possible futures doesn't exist. But let's learn from the Viceroy that it does exist. Viceroy began to weep very bitterly, because that is certainly something that happens the first time we get hit by these things. He was certain that it must exist someplace. He knew it. How do you know it if a giant who goes all around the world says it's not there? He was certain it must exist someplace, even though this giant was discouraging him and telling him that he's been told foolish tales. The Viceroy said, no, it does exist. The giant said to him, in my opinion, it is mere foolishness. But since you are so stubborn, I will do something for you. I'm in charge of all the animals. I will summon them all together. The animals run all over the world. Perhaps one of them knows something about this mountain castle. It's interesting that, like, the stubborn refusal of the Viceroy, it earns respect in the giant's mind, such that the giant will even do him a favor, which is the very one who denies it respects the fact that he's determined. He summoned all types of animals, large and small, and asked them. They all replied they had not seen anything like it. He said to the Viceroy, see, people told you foolish words, stories, listen to me and go home. It is certain that you will not find it. It simply does not exist. Viceroy continued to press him and said, but it must exist. And the giant said, my brother also lives in the desert. He's in charge of all the birds. Maybe they know something. They fly high in the air, and it's possible that they have been to such a mountain and castle. Go to him, tell him I sent you. The giant asked the same. The Viceroy traveled many, many years, and now we have another bunch of years. Go to my friend, the giant. Wow. Yeah, let's see what we got. I want to finish the story. We just have a few pages, but let's take a break. We'll finish it in a minute. Let's get a snack. I'll be right back. Pause. Well, that was a disaster. I had this smoothie mix with banana flavor. I'll just make me a quick old waffle or two in the new waffle maker. Too liquidy, burned. But luckily, half what was left was still like smoothie-like. I just drank it. And I thought to myself at the end, you know what? The smoothie pancake is better than the pancake or waffle. That's it. Let's keep going. We're in the middle of learning about the lost princess. Now, we are here. Summoned all types of animals, large and small. Yes, and they all replied, "I've not seen anything like that." I said, "See, people have told you foolishness. This is the giant." The Viceroy continued to press him and said, "But it must exist. Definitely." Again, another pronunciation of believing in himself. Believing in himself. And I heard an amazing definition from the Mohorosh Shlita about what it means to believe in yourself. And it means to believe in the truth that you know to be true is true. The truth that you know to be true is true, that you are special, a special you. Maybe you don't know it. And that's why before you start, you quit. Now, this is where he continued to press him and said, but it must exist, definitely. The giant said, my brother also lives here in the desert. So now we have giant number 2. We had giant number 1, in charge of the animals. Giant number 2, he's in charge of all the birds. Maybe he knows something. They fly high in the air, and it's possible they have seen such a mountain in a castle. Golden mountain in a castle. Go to him and tell him that I sent you. This way he traveled many, many years, searching for him until he finally found him. Didn't give up. Wow. Encountered another huge giant, just like the first one. He's also carrying an immense tree. This giant asked the same question his brother had, and the viceroy said, telling him the entire story, how his brother had sent him here. It's really amazing. Like, he tells him the whole story again, like, so honest and straight. The second giant also discouraged him, saying, this is obviously something that does not exist. But the viceroy pressed his convictions to him too. The giant said to him, I am in charge of all the birds. I will summon them. Perhaps they know. Now don't forget, like, you could get lost. Like, I got lost on the way just to have a banana pancake. I was already lost, and I ended up, it's the classic ADHD thing that I do. Some of you guys do too. It's like, I'm on my way to make banana pancakes, and I'm like, let me just move that queen-size bed into the bedroom that I told my wife I would do probably this evening. That'll just take a minute. By myself, moving to dumb man syndrome, DMS. Yeah, combined with ADD, woo, baby. Now, here we are. Why did I even tell you that? Can't get distracted for years and years. The giant said to him, I'm in charge of all the birds. I'll summon them. Perhaps they will know. He called all the birds, large and small, and asked every one of them. They all replied they did not know of any such mountain or castle. The giant said to him, don't you see that it certainly does not exist anywhere in the world? Listen to me and go home. Obviously, no such thing exists. The viceroy pressed him and said, but it certainly does exist somewhere in the world. The giant said to him, further on in the desert, you will find my brothers in charge of all the winds. They fly all over the world. Perhaps they will know. Giant number 3, the winds. The first one, animals. The second one, birds. And the third one, winds, man. We're going back to the root of creation. Back to the root, baby. Back to the root to creation. That's where we will birth a nation. In the darkness is the only way out. In the darkness, after you scream and shout, you got to go. Whoa, 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 whoa. You didn't know that this was a Torah found art musical. If you're still listening, then you must not mind. Now, the viceroy traveled for many years searching and finally found another giant like the first one. He was also carrying a huge tree. What's with the huge tree? All these giants walking around carrying a huge tree. Doo-doo-doo. They're not carrying a shofar. The giant told him he would assemble all the winds for his sake, and he would ask them, but he summoned them, and all the winds came. He asked them, but he did not know. Not one of them knew anything about the mountain or castle. The giant said to him, don't you see, people have told you foolish tales. Once again, every time he's at a situation where he could possibly break through, like Fence says, he could have a breakdown. Why? People were in his face saying, what do you think you are? Now, what do you do with this strength of believing in yourself? You see, in history, we've had both sides of the coins. We see many, many people who believe in themselves without the guidance of the holy tzaddikim and sages and saints and higher people who understand the maze, understand what's a haze and what's clear. And people do believe in themselves for all sorts of wrong things. The truth that they know to be true turns out not to be true, and they're in trouble. A lot of doo-doo. So, but still, he believes in himself. He knows there, deep in his heart, he knows there's a place that he can arrive. And you see this in therapy all the time. People are like, there's no this, there's this, the world's empty. I have this guy, I see, he mamish believes in existential nothingness. But why does it bother him? Why does it bother him? Because something in him knows. Something in him knows. He's been depressed and disabled for like 20 years. He doesn't seem to, in his mind, think he has a future. And that's what we talked about. We're working on segregating the day. And he really believes there's nothing, yet it bothers him. And not just because of the pain of it. Because something in him knows there's something more. And something in you and me knows there's something more than this C day, than this D day. Let's go on. Viceroy began to weep very bitterly. I know for certain that it does exist, he said. Just then he saw another wind come. The giant was angry at it. Why did you take so long to come, he demanded. I decreed for all the winds to come. Why didn't you come with them? Mr. Big Giant Wind is kind of pissed off that his wind didn't come. The wind replied, I was detained because I had to carry a royal princess to a golden mountain and a pearl castle. The viceroy was so happy. Yee-hee! The giant asked the wind, what things are valuable there? Everything is valuable there. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Because when you get a higher consciousness, when you get connected, when we get connected, everything's meaningful. Everything's valuable. Everything, every minute, every second. You know, I came up with a question. With God's help, I discovered a question to think about, like, what really matters to a person, and like what would you have like to know when you're at a situation where you ought to stick around with it? And one nice question is, can you think of a time, if you think of a few times when you thought, I've arrived, I hope this moment lasts forever, this situation lasts forever. And it's almost like defies the sense of time. Why? Because it feels timeless. It almost feels like, what, you know, why would I don't want to go anywhere from here, right? I just want to stay here forever. And that's like everything is valuable. Every thought, every conversation, every moment of life is valuable in that place. It's so funny because when we're in the lower place, it seems like just the very opposite. Every single moment seems worthless. Seems like a waste of time. Seems like I'm wasting the precious gift that was given to me, even and think and blame myself. We blame ourselves thinking, I'm the one who caused this by not doing this, by doing that, by saying this, by not saying that, by not standing up for myself, by lashing out, whatever it is. And we think that we did it. And yet every single moment of that time feels like a waste. One of my holy brothers, like he's disconnected for so many years. And it feels like he's just waiting. He's waiting. So what are these moments for? These moments feel like they're nothing. They're meaningless. They're a waste of time. And yet at the other side, when we're in a higher connected place, deeper connected place, everything is valuable. Everything is meaningful. Every single thing is important and special. And the higher I go, the more important it becomes, which is crazy. So I guess that's how we know where. And it's funny, the giant who said it doesn't exist, which I don't know why, he said what's valuable there. And the wind replied everything. The one in charge of the wind said to the viceroy, you have been seeking the princess for such a long time. You've expended so much effort. You may have difficulty because of a lack of money. I'm therefore giving you a purse. Whenever you put your hand into it, you will find money there. The giant then issued an order that this wind carry the viceroy there. The storm wind came and carried him to that place, bringing him right to the gate. There were soldiers there who would not let him enter the city, but he put his hand into the purse and took some money. He was then able to bribe them and enter the city. The end of the story is to bribe himself in. You remember in the beginning, he could walk into the city and no one even looked at him. He could walk right in. Now he can't get in without a bribe. The city was very beautiful. He went to a wealthy person and bought food from him. But who cares if he's wealthy? He would have to remain there a while, since he would have to use his intelligence and wisdom to devise a plan to free the princess. The Rebbe did not tell how he freed her, but in the end he did free her. Now, this is interesting. There were soldiers there who would not let him enter the city. He bribed them. The city was very beautiful. So we're saying, I don't know what this all means, but I'm thinking, like, And if you guys have any idea of what it means, please, send me a chat, a phone call, audio message, whatever. That he looks in his purse and he always has some money, and money's something valuable. We're saying something valuable, something with worth. Something worth is something that's fulfilling. So whenever he needs to, he can get into that fulfilling place, even though he's actually poor. He can make himself as if he's rich. Even though he's poor, he can make himself as if he's rich. The word in Hebrew for poor is Zt'l, but kis. Yeah, sichi, my conversation. Maybe I'm spelling it wrong. I'm not sure. Oh, kis, kaf, yad, somev. I can't think of anything. I'm not sure. Seems very big went to a wealthy person and bought food from him. He had to remain there a long time. He used his intelligent advisor to free the princess. The Rebbe not, but he did free him. So after all that, this crazy, exciting story the Rebbe doesn't tell us, the holy Rebbe, Zt'l, Rebbe Nachman fake is good again. Only know called Yisrael. Listen, I say all these things. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to why we're even talking about this. I got inspired to share this story. Rosh Hashanah is coming up, and every year we all want to rise up. We all want to find some place that's more really fulfilling, because the truth is, when we feel fulfilled, we don't have any questions and we feel better. Like right now, my head's flushing again. But so what? When I start to feel my soul again and reach into my pocket and take out something valuable, which is pieces of truth, pieces of understanding, of awareness, all of a sudden, I just feel better, right? And I think we can all relate to this. And how do we get there? How do we find that place even in the dark lands of depression? And that is my wish for all of us, holy brothers and sisters, whoever's listening, that we all find a way and support each other and help each other to connect with the higher power, with God. And most importantly, to find the light in the darkness, to find a place inside where we can connect, even when we're in the dark, and not to be afraid. I was thinking a week ago, there's this well-known teaching by Rebbe Nachman, Breslov, Koalam Kulo Geshet Sar Ma'od V'Ikar Lo Lefache Klal, that all the world's a narrow bridge, and the main thing is not to be afraid. So you think of this very narrow bridge across a chasm, the way people depict it a lot. Main thing is not to be afraid. So being in this world is like being a small little entity in a vast void of emptiness, of darkness. And we, not to be afraid, lo lefachid, to believe that the special moments are real and the meaningless moments are false, and trust it, even though we can't prove it, even though we can't see it. We gotta do 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 If you're still with me, amazing. I mean, it's probably the longest class I ever made in my life. Most people become heartbroken and collapse into deep despondency, and being tortured by their consciousness do so because they think and worry what happened yesterday, the day before, and so on. Furthermore, they worry what will be tomorrow, the day after that. If they would, however, separate this day from both the future and the past, then they would certainly live a truly eternal life, sensing the truth of God's existence, the notable and awesome clarity. Now we see why we have this story. For in truth, there is no existence without God whatsoever, and everything without exception is the divine life force of God. Even time is God's creation. For he has constricted himself. Whoa, now we're getting deep here. 370, here we go. Within the balance of days, hours, and minutes, due to the excessive light, it is impossible to comprehend this at all, and because of this, the vessel of the mind is broken, making it impossible to apprehend God's greatness. For after a person's tormented by thoughts of yesterday and today, he's overcome by the excessive light until he forgets completely about God. Whoa. If we could separate this day from the future and the past, we'd certainly live a truly eternal life, sensing the truth of God's existence. So Rosh Hashanah is coming. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We have to do teshuvah. We need to strengthen ourselves to remember how great we are. Remember the good things we're doing and look for the good in ourselves and others. The Lost Princess is such an interesting story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you gained a lot from it. The version I read came from this book, The Lost Princess and Other Tales of Other Kabbalistic Tales of Rebbe Nachman of Breslov, translated by Aryeh Kaplan and prefaced by Rabbi Chaim Kramer, the Jewish Lights publication. There's other versions, Hebrew, Yiddish. I'm still very curious. What's the anger in the beginning with the king? Before we stop for tonight, what's the anger? What is the anger? The king said he was angry one night. In the morning, the princess was gone. I read the story, 4 or 5 times so far, and I still don't know in my mind what my take is on the anger. If you have any ideas about the anger and what that has to do with our lives, please let me know. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol haneshama hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. I just feel like I can say enough about what Rosh Hashanah, what I'm being taught Rosh Hashanah is really the reset for karma, for the Jewish New Year, and for to crown God King. He's the ruler and the creator, and he's the one guiding my life and guiding yours and guiding all of us. And to celebrate the shofar, and the shofar reminds us of being broken and needing God. And without him, I have nothing. And yet I can be strong. Have a beautiful night.